Hello everybody, welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join me for a special video. We are going into the realms of an opinion video and we are going to be ranking every championship club's start from worst to best. Because it is an opinion video, for the first time in a while, we do need to have Ben's helpful guide to watching. No doubt, someone will say, why don't you just look at the league table if you want to know how good everybody's starts are? Fine, whatever. You know, live in your sad little world where everything is completely literal. We're looking at the nuance. We're looking at the story, not just the end point. My goodness me. Also, the best comment you can put is your own list. Now, what tends to happen on these videos, sadly, is Del45637 with a QPR badge as his avatar comments saying, why isn't QPR higher? And it's all a bit boring. It's not personal. If this bloke on the internet who you've never met doesn't think your team start is as good as you who supports your team do, don't take it personally. And with all that being said, let's do this. We are ranking every championship club start to the season from worst to best. Let's go. 24th and worst is fairly straightforward. It's Derby County, and we will line up with the league table on this one. Derby have had a horrendous start to the season. We're now in international break number 2, kind of waiting for a takeover to happen at Derby and then for the new owners to fire the current manager because it's not going well at all. The recruitment in the summer saw Martin and Bogle and Lowe all leaving. Some new players have come in, but they are not winning games. I think perhaps just a one win, wasn't it, at Norwich? But bottom of the table, it looks a bit clunky. It looks a bit untenable for Philip Koku, and I think even the most hardened Derby fan would struggle to disagree with me that the start to the season has been way below expectations. So that is why I've got Derby 24th. In 23rd place, Nottingham Forest. Now, there is some cause for optimism at Nottingham Forest because they have hired Krissy and he's won a couple of games now back to back and things are moving in the right direction. But if I had told you as a Forest fan, even at the end of last season after the big collapse, look, Lamucci's going to lose all of his first games and he's going to be fired. You're going to have to make a change. Oh, and by the way, you're literally going to sign another entire squad of players. So it's not been a good start. It's been very, very chaotic, which leaves Forest far lower than we would have expected that squad and a club of that stature to be. But I am optimistic that if we did this video in a couple of months' time, that won't be the case and they will likely move up the table. In 22nd, I've gone for Cardiff City. Cardiff are a year 2 parachute team, so there is some money there if they want to spend it. They've gone for loans in terms of Osei Tutu and Ojo and the excellent Harry Wilson. They've added Kiefer Moore as well up top, who'll be right up Neil Harris' street, but not really setting the world alight, are they? At best, they can be very hard to play against and quite devastating in terms of their points to possession sort of efficiency type game plan. However, at worst, they can be a little bit clunky and a little bit dull and sort of one note. So, look, if he gets it going, like he did at Millwall in 17-18, then surely Cardiff will move up the table. But I don't know how long Mr. Vincent Tan and Mehmet Dalman there will accept Cardiff being there down in the bottom half of the table. We will find out. In 21st, I've gone for Barnsley, mainly on the basis that I had quite high hopes for them. Struber had kept them up. He seemed a good fun, good manager for them at Barnsley. And then all of a sudden, very much like Lamucci, loses, or indeed doesn't win many of his first games. And out he goes, some kind of weird fallout there about ambition and a weird press conference at the end of the game against Middlesbrough. And that was a bit disappointing to me because I thought Barnsley might push on with Struber at the helm. So I'm sure if you told Barnsley fans that at the start of the season, they would have been disappointed. There is again cause for optimism here though, because they've hired another manager, Valerian Ismail, who has won I think 3 in 4 games since he's actually been in the dugout rather than watching from the stands in the first game. So a good squad there, cause for optimism, which means the current sort of 16th place and the fact that a manager's gone out the door is a little bit underwhelming for me. In 20th, I've gone for Coventry, who we were quite sort of excited about in terms of coming up from League One. Clearly the best team in League One last year in terms of the football they played. Nice and solid, stable club despite some ownership issues, but in terms of what's happened on the pitch and recruitment and management over recent times. However, their League One team doesn't seem to be competing as well as we thought that it might do. Only 1 win in the last 9, and Mark Robins is now tinkering a little bit, sort of going into this next load of games after the international break. They're trending a little bit downwards and closer to the relegation picture than I suspected they might be. Hey, maybe my expectations were too high, but that is my view, and that is why I've got Coventry 20th. In 19th spot, I've gone for Preston, who are just weird this season, aren't they? Absolutely terrible at home, 0 points, lost all of their games, and lost to Birmingham and Cardiff, no offence. And away, they've been absolutely brilliant. Okay, the recent defeat against Rotherham, but still, for points, they're the best team away in the entire division, and they've beaten Brentford and Reading. So Preston fans generally expect sort of top half and at best a playoff push, but yeah, just all over the place this season. So that is why I've placed them that low. And a bit of a controversial one here to have Brentford in 18th that low. However, they are 11th in the division. They will probably end up higher. I'm sure they will, in fact. I just feel that where Brentford had got to at the end of last season with that win streak, and frankly could have gone up automatically on the last day, I thought they would have started this campaign a little bit better. Yes, Ben Rama goes, and delayed as well. Watkins goes as well. And I know injuries to Janssen and Norgard haven't helped, but I think that's holding back Brentford. I think they've probably got another 2 levels above where they're playing at the moment. Tony's been excellent. Force is a good backup. They're breaking in Godos and Kanyos to join in that front 3, but not where I would have put them, I have to say, at this juncture. In 17th, I've gone for Wycombe. Probably some people will find that quite high. However, I think in context, Wycombe are one of the smaller teams we've ever had in the Championship, smaller sized clubs. Don't be offended by that description, but they just are. They've never been there historically, and in terms of incomes and things of that nature, they're smaller than a lot of the other clubs. We just have to face the reality. It's not an insult, Wycombe fans. After the first 7 games, I would have had them bottom of this list because they lost all of them, didn't they? However, some cause for optimism because they've been competitive in the last 4 games, losing narrowly at Norwich and then beating Watford and Birmingham before, I would say drawing with Watford, beating Sheffield Wednesday and Birmingham, all over the place. They're trying to remember 24 teams. Isn't easy. One defeat there at the weekend since at Forest. But if you'd have told me Wycombe would be one game away from safety at any point this season, I think Wycombe fans would be happy. And it's flitted from total whipping boys to, okay, maybe they're going to be more competitive than we thought. So I've got Wycombe there, 17th best start. Next up in 16th, I've gone for QPR. Some people might find that quite high, but let me justify it because QPR started last season and they had Eze, Hugill and Wells, and they scored loads of goals and conceded loads of goals. So ergo, you start the next season without Eze, Hugill and Wells. Are you going to concede loads of goals and not score loads of goals? Obviously, they brought in Dykes and Bon. Dickey looks like a good signing. I just feel, given what Warburton has sort of had thrown at him, with Ryan Manning as well, not appearing to really want to play for QPR anymore, and you lose your good left back. Also, I feel like he's had to cope with some chaos, changing the keeper as well. Wallace coming in, not doing too well at left back. So I think where he's got them, where, they're erratic, they concede a lot of goals, they score a lot of goals, they're very open. There is a sense that they're maybe not going to be troubled by the relegation picture too badly, and that the team can build going forward. So maybe I've called that one too high, but I've got QPR in 16. In 15th, I've gone for Blackburn, who I do find a little bit confusing because I'm very enthusiastic about a lot of what they've done. Obviously, Armstrong is superb up top and the top scorer in the league. I like the addition of Elliott and the front three with Brereton. Tribal was very good for Norwich. Douglas was very good for Leeds. Pears has come. There's been a lot of recruitment that seems sensible that would likely improve the team. And you see some of the goals and that front three transitioning quickly and punishing teams. And then I look at the results and I think, well, at the moment, though, are they winning any tricky games? It seems that they're all coming either against teams with red cards or teams that are out of form. So as much as I like what Blackburn are doing, and again, if it clicks and they can start going well against good teams, it could be a really nice season for them. I'm expecting slightly more from them at the moment. In 14th, I have got Birmingham City. Some people may balk at that, but what I will say here is this is a complete ground-up build by Aitor Karanka. So you've got the new manager. The squad was literally run down during lockdown. They didn't even have pros on the bench often, and Karanka has had to come in and in 11 games basically do his recruitment. Yes, with the Jude Bellingham money, but okay, you don't have Jude Bellingham now. That works both ways, doesn't it? And okay, it's very defensive, it's very pragmatic, but in 11 games, he started to build the team. The recruitment, Hogan should be good if he can get to where he was last season. San Jose looks like a good signing. Added to good players already there like Bella. Clayton and Friend he already knows. And you can add that to, say, a Pedersen or a Dean or a Roberts or a Collin that are already there. Etheridge, good signing. I just think for a ground-up build to have an identity, albeit a defensive one, and they're going to be competitive in that pragmatic Karanka way, aren't they? I think that's a pretty good job in 11 games to get that going. We've seen people take a lot longer and get fired in similar situations. In 13th spot, I'm going to go for Rotherham, who appear to be the most competitive of the three promoted teams, and there is a sense of a long build under Paul Warne and maybe bouncing between divisions, but it's a club that runs well, it's a club that doesn't fritter money, and for them to be on over a point per game, which they are at the moment, if they can track that across the season, that might well be enough, a 46 points plus season to keep Rotherham in the division, which is the target. The recruitment looks good with sort of Barlassa coming in, and Blackman has come in on loan to play in goal, hasn't he? And Harding from Birmingham. So I just put a lot of ticks in a lot of boxes. Has he got them competitive? Yes. Has he improved the team? Yes. Are they doing okay? Yes, although a few tight games may be going against them and not managed that well. Do they look okay at the moment? Yes. So I've got to give Rotherham a thumbs up and put them quite high up in my rankings. In 12th, I've gone for Stoke City. Yes, I know they are lying 8th in the table. That may appear a little bit harsh, but I expect a lot from Stoke this season. If you track the points from Michael O'Neill last season, they're essentially a playoff team under his management. Remember, they're a wealthy club and there's parachute payments there. They have a lot of strength in the squad and can rotate in and out from that basic match day 18. There's a lot of strength there. I just feel that they could be more consistent. I know I constantly say here they will grind it out, but at the moment I'm just seeing sort of defeat every second game and no back-to-back wins yet. I suspect they'll probably go on to do that and grow into the season, but I thought they would already be up in the playoffs challenging those year one parachute teams so far. So that's why I'm putting them a little bit lower than their actual league position. In 11th, I will go for Millwall, which take that as a compliment, Millwall fans, because that's where the expectations are now. Obviously, 9th in the table. Good, stable summer under Rowett with Zohore and Parrott. I know we haven't seen a lot of them yet coming in. The Woods loan done again. And people like Wallace and Cooper retained. And, you know, the idea that, okay, we're not going to sell the key players and, you know, we're going to have a good go at this. With all that being said, look, they're very solid, they're very stable, they're obviously very competitive, but we did have the most optimistic Millwall fans thinking they might have a really good go at this season, and they're not quite there, and I do sense there's a level above, like Stoke, of extra consistency. Obviously, we put Millwall higher than Stoke, given where the two clubs have come from in the past decade, but bracketing sort of both of them there, I do think, I'm not saying either of them will reach it, but think there's a higher ceiling for both that they haven't yet hit in this first 11 games. Into my top 10, and don't bulk, I've got Sheffield Wednesday at 10th. And let me just caveat this by saying I made my notes for this yesterday before Gary Monk left. So I'm going to stick with where I had them. And look, this is purely a numbers game, isn't it? The whole premise of Sheffield Wednesday's season was, can you stay up with minus 12 points? That was it. It was one factor that we've got to judge this on. And on day one, they were 12 points off. And on game 11, international break 2, they are 2 points off. So that to me, if I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan, would be a big win. Now, some Sheffield Wednesday fans would say the fact Gary Monk has gone is a big win because over the last half of last season and this season, the points aren't all that great. Most of that you can back up into last season. However, this season, they are just not a relegation team at the moment. If you look at the first 5 games, really good. It was like 8 or 9 points from the first 5 games. Extrapolate that out and they're comfortably off. I just feel that, yes, 6 of the points have come from the arbitration giving them back. 4 points in the last 2 games as well. I think you've just got to play big picture with Sheffield Wednesday, and they will be extremely happy with that start. And if they can improve the management side of it, maybe they'll be even happier in 3 or 4 days when a new manager possibly comes in. But there is my rationale. I don't think you can be unhappy if you're a Sheffield Wednesday fan. And of everybody's targets this season, Sheffield Wednesday are probably the furthest on to achieving theirs than any other team, given this single factor analysis, and the sights are kind of set quite low with the deduction. In 9th, I have gone for Huddersfield Town, who I'm pretty impressed with actually. We have the big caveat that the parachute money, Carlos Corberan was never going to get that. We have the big caveat that Carlos Corberan is a new manager doing his first job as, you know, the main guy, the boss. We've heard, you know, that he's worked under Bielsa. I don't necessarily subscribe to this idea that if you're Arteta and you work under Guardiola, you should be judged by the same standard that Guardiola is, or if you're Corberan and you've worked for Bielsa, the same thing. But it was new. It was a bit of a ballsy appointment, and we've seen Huddersfield when a lot of people were worrying about them maybe choking and having a really bad season under a new manager with not a lot of money to spend. Karlan Grant are out the door as well, the top guy from last season. They've been competitive, they've won games, and the pattern of play looks really, really nice. They scored a couple of fantastic goals, one against Forest, one against the other day. I can't remember, Eiting scored the goal, I can't remember who it was against. But there's some real reason to be optimism. And of all the I've been proved wrong ones, I was worried about Huddersfield, and now I don't think I am. So much to be optimistic about. And given what we thought could be the worst case scenario, they appear, after 11 games, to be quite far from that. In 8th spot, got to go for Luton, and we have to do a compare and contrast with last season. I mean, first of all, compare Nathan Jones at Stoke and Nathan Jones at Luton. But compare Luton last season, where they were down the bottom, hemorrhaging goals and not competitive at all for a long, long period of the season. They pulled off the escape in the end, got a really, really good total. And look at them now. They've kind of kept that going, haven't they? Which is really, really great stuff. Again, not patronising any club, but Luton is not the biggest club in the Championship. Their owner and chairman are very outspoken that they're not going to just throw money in the way that we've seen some Championship teams do. And they're very dynamic and they're very competitive, aren't they? And there's a sense, and this sounds like a top half team, that they're capable of beating teams that aren't in a good moment. They might struggle against some of the upper teams, but at the moment functioning very nicely in 10th place. I think they've already got 5 victories as well, and it looks very, very different to last season, doesn't it? Where, oh, can we just pull ourselves above that line and stay up? Whereas now it's, okay, can we be a little bit competitive this season, and can we have a really good one? And I think that is shows up really well for Luton, and I think it's an excellent start. In 7th spot, I've gone for Swansea. Maybe I could have gone a little bit higher with that, but hey, debate it in the comments. Why don't you? Look, Rhian Brewster, hole to fill up top that still hasn't been filled. They did get into the playoffs last season on the basis of a good run at the end of the season and Nottingham Forest choking, frankly. The football is still good under Cooper. There's still a bit of a reliance on Andre Ayew, who's a fantastic player. But I do like the ambition, despite that these American owners there don't really ever put a load of money into the club. And once again, after McBurney and after James, now Rodden has gone. But they look like they've stocked it up with Bennett and with Manning, with Gyökeres on loan, Gibbs White, Corey Smith, Casey Palmer on loan. It looks quite ambitious. It looks quite good. My worry is, and it's not even really a Swansea worry, it's the fact that the 3 parachute teams, year 1, none of which we've mentioned yet in this video, I don't know how competitive they'll be across the season against those 3. I think it's going to be very hard for everybody to get above them this particular season. So I've gone for Swansea there in 7th, but I'm impressed. Just wish they could, fill that striker role. That you're not going to get another Brewster. You might get one on loan, but it does feel that that might lead them to come a cropper if it's not addressed through the season. In 6th, we will go for Bristol City. And who knew what the hell would happen when Lee Johnson went out and we expected someone to come in. We waited and waited and waited. And in the end, they just gave it to Dean Holden and gave him some help in terms of some extra staff on the bench with him. He started brilliantly, won the first 4 games. Bit of a bad streak since, but we'll have to call him Streaky Dean after Streaky Lee. 2 straight wins, and nice job up there and in 5th place. Recruitment good, a bit unlucky with injuries as well, with Vyman, and Mawson and Sessegnon all not playing. But I can't really call the Mawson signing a good signing. I thought it was going to be, but obviously he's out hurt now. But Backinson into the team. Martin looks like a very, very good signing as well. And they haven't succumbed to the chaos of a long-term manager going, which is often a difficult thing to avoid. Where they'll finish, I don't know, but I have to hold my hands up and say that's a good start and better than I expected. In fifth is the first of our power trio of Year 1 parachute teams who all look like they're going to have a good season, which is terrifying for the rest of the league. So Watford had to cope with a new manager coming in. Now, that's maybe less of a big deal for someone like Watford than it is for a Bristol City, who we just mentioned, where they've had the same manager for a long time, because Watford have had a high turnover of managers. So he's done a good job of immediately getting the team going and competitive and winning and high up in the table, go figure, second place. He has done that with an incredibly star-studded squad. We now have two strikers to choose from if he plays the front two, between Sarr, Deeney, Gray and João Pedro. So very strong up there. Capoue, Cleverley, even at the back, the four he's choosing from there, Wilmot, Kabasele, Ekong and Cathcart. It's a very, very strong squad, and if it plays to its form and Ivic puts on a similar season than he has done in Greece and Israel before, then Watford will stay in the top two and improve from here. The only criticism we can give is it's quite defensive and they probably haven't clicked, and there is another level to go up to, which bodes well if you're a Watford fan and you're already second. So I think it's a decent start, probably on par with expectations, and some idea that they could even go a little bit better than they are at the moment in terms of performance and pattern of play and execution of plan. In fourth, I've got to go for Norwich, who have been a little bit confusing, but the results are good and they're in a good spot right now, and it looks like things can get better for them as well. Yes, they did not have to cope like Bournemouth and Watford with a new manager coming in. They did have to cope with a long losing streak in the Premier League and fixing that. And they did had to cope with some chaos. But if I was a Norwich fan and I wanted certain players to stay, and they have had to sell, I would have wanted them to be Aarons, Pukki and Buendia. And you get to international break too. All of those three players are still there and they're all starting to play well again. And that really was a cornerstone of the promotion, with this same manager, this same club, in this same division, with a lot of these same players. So they've coped with that chaos. The confusion comes from that their results are probably better than their performance at the moment. Look, the comparison is reasonable. As I've said, same manager, same club, a lot of the same players, same division, only a year apart. In 18-19, yes, they had the element of surprise, and now they're playing against a lot of stacked defences against them. I do accept that mitigation, but they won a lot of games comfortably and they scored a lot of goals. They are, at the moment, winning a lot of games tightly and not scoring a lot of goals. And I do acknowledge that could be because teams are just stacking defences against them. Or that could be that they're not as good as 18-19. One of those two things may turn out to be true, and they are still good, and it's just a different challenge for Norwich this season. We'll see where it goes, but I would expect the expectation from Norwich fans, with a team managed by Farke, with what looks like a really on-fire goalkeeper as well, and Aarons, Pukki, Buendia still going through that team with a load of other quality as well. The expectation would be that the results would be good and the performances would be good. So we'll see whether it is that they're not quite there yet, or they are just going to play against stacked defences all season. But I still think there's that extra level that Norwich may well be able to go to. I've gone for Bournemouth in third. You may be confused. Why have I gone for Bournemouth, who are the lowest currently of the 3 Year 1 parachute teams? Why have I gone for them as the highest? I think Norwich didn't have to cope with a long-term manager going. Watford didn't either, because the managers are never there long-term. And I think Bournemouth have probably had to cope with the most out of the 3 parachute teams in terms of they're smaller in stature than those other 2 clubs. We know that. There was a bit of a concern financially about how well secure they were. There's been a lot of chaos when you take out a manager that's so ingrained in the club and has done so much through the years. You worry about that affecting things badly. And they really had to sell early. Yes, I know all of the 3 relegated teams have, but Ake and Ramsdale and Wilson is centre-half, if you believe in spines of teams. I personally don't, but keeper, centre-half, goalkeeper, you could describe that as the spine of a team. Certainly 3 important players. Yes, they're still very well stocked and can put out Danjuma, Solanke, and Brooks or Surridge as well. But they haven't really brought anybody in as such. And I think they've mitigated the transition across, which could have been very chaotic, pretty well. They've only lost 1 game. And I think they've done a really, really good job. I, infamously in my pre-season predictions, had them to suffer from the chaos. And I had them way down low in this division. I think I had them 14th. Because I thought this would be the one where they don't cope with the transition as well. I think they've had more thrown at them than the other 2 relegated teams. You can debate that in the comments. Be kind about it. And I think they've done a really, really good job of doing that. And I think it's going to be a challenge between these 3 behemoth squads of Bournemouth, Norwich and Watford this season. We'll see who comes out on top. But in terms of mitigating the transition from Premier League to Championship and from very important manager and figure at their club to not having him, I think I'm going to give them the biggest tick there, which is why I've got them third. In second is Middlesbrough, which may surprise a few. They are 7th in the division. However, we need to paint the big picture here. And yes, I am a bit of a sucker for Neil Warnock. I find him very amusing. And he's been a brilliant manager at this level for many, many years. But just wind the clock back a little bit to a Tony Pulis team that had Adama Traore. Let's just say a much more moneyed, parachute-funded squad that Tony Pulis did not manage to get out of this league. Wind forward, parachute payments gone, players sold. Steve Gibson trying to, work within the FFP and profit and sustainability guidelines. He tries Jonathan Woodgate. It really, really doesn't work. And a real possibility of relegation last season. It wasn't going well. Everything needed a sort out. They went into a game at the end of the season away at Charlton. I was there. They got a win. And I think if they'd have lost that game, Woodgate did eventually get fired after that. But I think if they'd have lost that game, it would have been a real possibility that Middlesbrough would have been relegated last season. In comes Neil Warnock. He gets them over the line. He does enough. And then this summer, you kind of wonder, well, what can he really do? They haven't got any money anymore. They can't go and break FFP and spend a fortune of Steve Gibson's money. They got anyone to sell? No, not really. Hasn't worked that way for them, has it? I guess the last big sale out would have been Flint, probably, wouldn't it? And that left them with what they have. Young players in that Woodgate tried to use and didn't really succeed last season. Who's come in? I don't know. Grant Hall. Was it on a free? I can't remember. Bettinelli, the goalkeeper. Again, that's either a loan or a free. Some money spent on Akpom, a striker. Sammy Morsey, taken from Wigan. They're not the only championship club to take players. Basically, what I'm saying is Neil Warnock has taken a side that could quite possibly have been relegated last season And without spending a great deal of money, as it stands, they may not finish up here. He's got them in 7th place with a clear identity. Defensively, they are standout, not conceding goals and not conceding chances, with often a right-back playing at centre-back, a central midfielder in Howson or McNair converted into a centre-back. I'm talking about Dijksteel, by the way, playing centre-half. He's just done a superb job getting them up there. He's got nowhere near the squad or the riches to compete long-term this season with your Bournemouth and Norwich and Watford. Obviously not. But to have that clear identity and for them to be so competitive, 10 games unbeaten and the best defence in the league, I think is a real brilliant job, I have to say. You look at the 3 parachute teams and you say, okay, par, they're playing their expectations. You look at Middlesbrough and you say, this is a best case scenario situation that Borough are in. So I've got them 2nd best start in the division. And a big tip of the cap to old scoundrel Mr. Warnock. Well done. And at number 1, with a huge entire bag of caveats and mitigating factors, we have to give it to Reading. How can we not? We've spoken about expectations, we've spoken about surprises, recruitment, we've spoken about new managers. So basically, unless Reading were underperforming in the most sensational way last season, we have to say Veljko Paunovic to win 7 and draw 1 of his first 8 was sensational form. I hear you saying already, Ben, they've lost their last 3 games. Yes, I know. So this may be as good as it gets for Reading. They lie top. They're on 2 points per game with 22 points from 11. And they have had an incredible start, way above anyone's expectations. A new manager. Look, there's been a lot of conversation, and I won't use the word luck because it upsets people. Have Reading been ruthlessly efficient and have the tight games gone for them a few times? Yes. That is not the same as being lucky. You can do that using skill, let's just say. Is that good management? Let's say it is. And it's been a really fantastic start. Zhao, he's got playing. Maite looks really great. Elise, who came into the team last season, looks good. They were solid at the back. However, there is that big look. They've lost the last 3 games. Has the bubble burst? We will find out over the course of the season. But let's not deny Reading fans the pleasure of me saying, look, who's had the best start, above expectations, the most surprising in the Championship, 2 points per game from the first 11, top of the league, with the caveat of they've lost the last 3 games. We've got to give it to Reading. Okay, that was my ranking video. It's supposed to be a bit of fun and a more informal way of analysing the start to the season up to this second international break. And I make it that the Championship team that has had the worst start, and they are bottom, I have gone with the league table at top and bottom, is Derby, and the best start is Reading. Yes, they are top and bottom in the league, but there's a lot of nuance in all of the other calls in between. Please let me just refer you back to Ben's helpful guide to watching. Again, if you've got to the end of the video and you're still tempted to comment, why not just look at the league table, Ben? You've just picked the top and bottom from the league table. That is extremely black and white and narrow-minded, let's just say, and quite disrespectful of the time and effort I've put into covering all the other teams to try and deduce where we get to. As I said, if that is your standard for judging the story and the nuances and everything, yes, ultimately the end point is the league table tells us who wins the league and who doesn't. But we all know there's a lot of nuance in between. So understand the spirit of the video, please. The best comment is your own list. So you now know that I have got Rotherham 13th. So if you say to me in the comments, oh, Ben, how can you have Rotherham 13th? All I'm going to ask is, well, where you would put them. And then when you say I'd have them 17th, all I'm going to say is why, and I had Wycombe 17th. So who would you have? Where would you have Wycombe? So the best comment is put your own 1 to 24 in if you can be bothered. That is, I know it's far easier to just tear down what I've said than come up with a list of your own, but that is the best comment, and it's the most satisfying for me to receive. Look, I'm okay with the criticism, but I will just ask you why you'd have them there or why you disagree with me. And the end point of that is do your own list. So that would be the best comment, wouldn't it? And finally, it's not personal, for goodness sake. I have been accused of having agendas for and against so many teams. And I say, tongue-in-cheek, leave your bias at the door. And I think what a lot of people need to remember when it comes to football is that bias works both ways. And as I had to say to a slightly childish Leicester fan yesterday, who's likely to be more affected by bias? The neutral YouTuber covering 30 teams who does not support Leicester or indeed even cover Leicester, or the Leicester fan who follows one team whose self-esteem is seemingly attached to people saying stuff about the clubs and liable to emotional outbursts. So please don't take it personally. I'm not biased. I don't have an agenda. Take a look at yourself if you're accusing me of the agenda. I'm open to sensible comments as to why I might have an agenda, but just because I didn't say that your team was better than Barcelona 2009, take a look at yourself rather than me in that instance. Anyway, that is my championship rankings. Every club's start to the season, worst to best. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it a bit of fun and not a normal kind of Benjamin Bloom analytical story so far type video. Please get involved in the comments. Keep it sensible. Leave your bias at the door. And again, the best comment, why don't you do exactly what I've done, in which case I can hold you to the same standard that you might be holding me to, which is grounds for a fair debate, I think, isn't it? Everyone gets all the information. We hold everybody to the same standard. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed this style ranking video, and I'll come up with some others. Certainly good fun, although, as you can see, I'm quite trepidatious about how the comments come out, but there you go. I'm working on my thin-skinned, sometimes reactions to the YouTube comments, let's just say. I hope you enjoyed it, like I said, and I will see you very soon. Over and out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.